We are going to talk about the education. There has been a transformation of education from the colonial time to CBC. CBC idea is good, and so was the 844. But as time goes on, you'll find that we will slowly go back to where we were. For example, when 844 started, there were some lessons that were introduced. It was discovered that some men only knew how to prepare tea and fry eggs. So they brought in the subject of home science and agriculture, where students were to be taught how to cook in the house and also how to farm. But it reached somewhere and it went and it became a competition for districts. I remember Nyandaro used to lead. So it became every district education officer, every school head teacher, they wanted to be seen to have improved, in school aggregate, to have improved, if possible, even to be leading in the area, to be leading in the division, to be leading in the district, and even to be leading in the country. So it became competition and it got out. You may not have noticed, but the initial class, which did the first class that did CBC, they were taken out in the field. You could see the headmaster walking around with them on the road on environmental issue, where they were even collecting dirt on the road. But as CBC went on, that thing has been forgotten. And that is the starting. In the future, you'll find even more and more such things happening. That is Kenya for you. Now I'll talk about the four. I think there are four. I'll talk about the four ways our education system has changed. CBC 844, Standard 7 A levels, and Standard 8 A levels. So those are four. I'll start with the Standard 8 A levels. When, just before Kenya got independent, people used to study up to Standard 4. Upon reaching Standard 4, they would do a paper called Common Entry Examination. They would do Common Entry Examination. Now, after clearing it in any Common Entry Examination, CEE in Standard 4, one would either look for a job, one would give up on education, one would repeat until he or she gets marks to go to Standard 5, such and such a thing. Then that is what, during the colonial time, that was what was called primary. Standard 5 to Standard 8 used to be called intermediate. Intermediate. So you find that a place where we have several schools, one of the primary schools would be called primary and intermediate. I want to give you an example that we have three schools: Riruta Satellite Primary School, Durarwa Primary School, and PC Kinyanjui Primary School. It used to be called Geshagi Primary. So you'd find all the two of them would have up to Standard 4, and one of them would be Standard 5 to 8. So because of what I've just said, that makes the number of students not go to Standard 5. Exam, some have even decided that is the level they can go, and so on and so forth. you'd find that once they did that, uh, the number reduced. So one of the schools would have standard 5 to 8. So if you go to the gate of the schools, you'll find these other two schools are written Durarwa Primary School, and the other one would be called Geshagi Primary School. But Riruta Primary School at the gate would be written Primary and Intermediate School. Primary and Intermediate School. So when you've done standard 8, they used to do an exam that was called KAPE, KAPE, Kenya African Preliminary Examination. Kenya African Preliminary Examination. Then after doing KAPE, you would go to Form 1, that is standard 8 to Form 1. But then when Kenya attained independence, the government was against the idea of different races doing different exams. So KAPE was removed and they placed there KPE, KPE, Kenya Primary Education. And they removed the Common Entry Examination. So you started in standard 1 and went up to standard 8 without the Common Entry Examination. And then from there you'd go to Form 1. You'd go to Form 1. That is at the independence time. So you went KPE, Kenya Preliminary Examination. Then around late 60s, KPE was replaced by CPE. Don't think that I've confused with the KCPE. No, it is CPE, which is Certificate of Primary Education. Certificate of Primary Education. Now, when they brought that CPE, late 60s, they wanted to remove standard 8. So that time, I think it was 67 or 68, the two classes, standard 7 and 8, did standard 7 and 8 did CPE. When they did CPE, if you are in standard 7 and you passed the CPE, you would go to Form 1. And if you are in standard 8 and failed CPE and you still wanted to continue the education, you repeat standard 7. That means the year before last year, you are in standard 7. Last year, you are in standard 8. And then this year, you are in standard 7. Of course, many didn't want, many gave up. That is how they eliminated standard 7. Then we started having CPE. Everybody would start standard 1 to standard 7 and do CPE. And then go to Form 1. When you are in standard 7, you would be given up to 1975. You used to be given 3 choices. You'd be given 3 choices and you'd choose choice number 1 with school fulani, choice number 2, choice number 3, just 3 choices. Those days there were no national schools. Those days there were no provincial schools. There were no special schools. So if the results come and you chose a school like Lenana, you'd find that somebody who chose a district school, no, an inferior school, not a district school, an inferior school would be taken in the first choice, and he has less points than you, and you'll be taken to that inferior school on your second selection or even third selection. So it went on that. Starting from 1976, they brought in the selection, which was based on district school, provincial school, and national schools. So they changed that one had to be given 4 choices. One was given 4 choices. You chose one choice in a national school and one choice for a provincial school and the 2 choices for district schools. Later on, with the 2010 constitution, it was changed. It was changed to an extent that instead of provincial school, because there were the other ones were the ones which were district school were continued being called county schools, but provincial school they started calling them extra county schools. Now, when you had completed for standard 7, you were joining Form 1, because I've talked about primary. Uh, I've talked about primary during the colonial when it was standard 8. Then it was reverted to standard 7. I've not talked about 844. So during that time when you have completed standard 7 and you are joining Form 1, when you join Form 1, you had to choose 3 places, and if you fail and you wanted to go to school, you would opt. Indians started their own private schools. Indians started their own private schools, where people who could not make it in government schools would go to private schools. The quality of education there was poor, and the fees was higher, double than the government schools. Good teachers went to government schools, and trained teachers went to private schools. But then again, residents used to stay together, and they used to see, if you met somebody older than me, he would tell you where he used to go for secondary, and you'll find that he used to walk very far. He used to walk very far, and those days there was no matatu, there was no boda boda. So schools were, and 90% of secondary schools during my time, 90% of the secondary schools were day school, and 10% were boarding school. But today, it is vice versa. You find that 90% are boarding and 10% are day school. So you went to a day school and you used to walk a long distance. And then parents sat down, decided, parents decided that they would start, they would changa, make an arambe, get a plot, then construct classrooms in that place, so that through Harambe method, the government used to offer one teacher who was the head teacher. So the TSC would send one teacher, and all other teachers were UTs. Another reason why the teachers there were UTs, first of all, we had very few teachers. Today, you graduate and you still find you graduate as a teacher and still tarmac for some time without getting. But those days you used to get schools ready. The other reason was that parents there also wanted their kids in the area who could not find jobs would easily get a job in the Harambe school. So we had 3 types of schools, which was Harambe, private, and government. Now, when we came to Harambe and private, it was compulsory for them to sit for an exam in Form 2, which was called Kenya Junior Secondary Examination. That is an examination in Kenya for junior secondary. Remember, I'm saying junior secondary. Now, when they did that, uh, you remember some people, even upon reaching Form 2, they would go look for job, police, army, or anything. So you'll find, and then there is also, you'll find that if you started Form 1, 25 of you, some died, some were not interested in education, some, there are so many reasons that you'll find when you reach Form 3, you are 20. So 5 people would be gotten from either Harambe or private school to join you to go back to 25. So that is why Kenya Junior was important to private students. And it was also important to private students because if you failed in Form 4, then you'll start looking for a job with your CPE. But then if someone in CPE got better than you and went to government school, he reached Form 4, and you went to a private school and got a KJC, because some even after getting KJC, that was enough to look for a job. But if you all went to Form 4 and you failed, you see, you'll still have your Standard 7 certificate, and he will have his Standard 7, but you may get the job better than him, because even though his CPE was better than yours, but you still have a junior secondary certificate. So you'll find that some people, as a backup, those who are in government schools, they would still go to the next neighboring private school and register for Kenya Junior just as a backup. For example, if you are a student at Bungoma Boys and you felt you needed a backup, you'd go to the nearest town high school, register there. So on the exam day, you'd just cross over the fence, go to the private school, do the exam while dressed in the government school uniform. That was just as a backup. Then from there, you'd go and do the Form 4. Form 4 was an exam that was set in England. It was called GCE, the initial standard 8. The initial standard 8, the Form 4 exam used to be set in England, in Cambridge University. That is why you find people like Kibaki say that in Form 4 they did Cambridge. There is a university in Cambridge that used to set the exam. And so after it has set the exam, it used to come by ship. It would come by ship all the way through Suez Canal and then come to Kenya, to Mombasa. When they reach Mombasa, they come by train. And when it reaches railway Nairobi, the exams would be taken to a vault in Central Bank. It would be taken to a vault in Central Bank. Swahili was not an examinable subject, and that is why you see people saying Kizungu kilikuja na meli. It's because the exam papers used to come by by meli, not mail. But then there was the Middle East War, Israel against Arabs, that there was a problem. There was a problem in Suez Canal, and that year the boat did not even enter Mediterranean. It went all through Cape of Good Hope and came to Mombasa. So when it came to Mombasa, it was late. That year, those people who were supposed to do the exam the previous year sat their exam on that year. And then they sat the exam on that year, and those who they sat the exam that year. And the two classes sat exams in 1 year, just like you remember Corona. There are two classes that did their Form 4 the same. It happened that way. And then the East African countries decided to have an examination council, which was called East African Examination Council. And East African Examination Council, and the examination was called East African Certificate of Education. I have, personally, my Form 4 certificate is called EACE, East African Certificate of Education. I've not talked about 844. Then from there are those people who went to Form 5 and Form 6. I was one of them. So when you went to Form 5 and Form 6, you would take subjects that are related. You'd take subjects that are related to the degree that you want. For example, if you want to become a teacher and a doctor, you do something which is to be called PBC. PBC. That means physics, biology, and chemistry. If you wanted to be a doctor. And if you wanted to be a lawyer, you do English, that is literature, English literature, you do history and Swahili, something like that. So that is, and then you find that the 844, you do all the subject, but A levels, you concentrated on 3 subjects that are related to the degree that you want to take. That is why when we were in Form 4, when we were choosing Form 5, we were being told that you choose the degree you want in Form 4, but then when you are selecting Form 5, you are select a school that offers certificates, that offers A-level subjects that are agreeable with the degree you are going to take. Like today, if in 844, if you want to be a doctor and fail in languages, then you'll get an A minus, and since the medical field is so competitive, you'll be forced to take another degree. But during our time, you only take 3 subjects that are related to what you want to study in the university. That is the advantage of A level. Now let us go to 844. Around the mid 80s, Moi decided to do away with the A levels and decided that in primary they have to be 8 years. And as I've said, the initial intention of having 844 was like CBC. We were having people who are graduating who are bookworms only. So the 844 was to start somebody who was holistic, somebody who could cook, somebody who could even prepare the house, somebody who could do whatever. But it was a sort of a CBC. So after finishing standard 8, you go for 4 years. And then the 4 years is when you go to the university. Then the university was added 1 more year. It was added 1 more year. I'll go back to our former system, Form 6. Form 6 at the university. Now I'm talking of the university. Form 6, when you went to university, you did, we use those who went to university. Me, I went there as an employee, but not as a student. Those who went to study at the university had a system. There were 3. The first year you must take 3 subjects. First year you have to take 3 subjects. Today I'm seeing when you go to the university, like teaching, you take 2 subjects, isn't it? But those days you used to take 3 subjects. You used to take 3 subjects in first year. And then after first year, it was compulsory for you to drop 1 subject. For example, you join the university doing 3 subjects: physics, biology, and chemistry. So in the second year, you had to drop 1, remain 2. Now, a third year, you will have to drop 1 and remain 1 subject. So most students used to have 3 to 1 combination. 3 to 1 combination. But then, for those students, there were those students after second year, you drop 1 subject, it becomes 2. And then the second year, you are unsure. I mean, it was not even for clever boys or clever girls. It is usually for people who were weak. So you'd sit down with your lecturer and you'd access the thing. You'd say, "Hey, which one do I drop?" Then the lecturer says that you are poor in this subject, but if you drop it, the one you have still remained with. So you don't take chance with 1 subject in that year. Just take 2 subjects. So you find that in the former system, the Form 6 system, the first year it was compulsory for 3 subjects. But second year, it was also compulsory for 2. But final year, you are supposed to take 1. But if you in consultation with the lecturers, you find that you are not sure of which one, whatever, then you would end up with 3 to 2. First year you did 3 subjects, second year 2, third year 2. These are the people who used to pass general. Most of them used to pass the degree in general. Just find he has passed general. But then if you go to, that was those who passed general. Now if you go to, there are those who are very clever. And usually they used to have problems also. Because the first year they do 3 subjects. But after you complete 3 subjects, you are supposed to discuss with your lecturers which one to drop. But the lecture, first of all, will discover that you are clever in all the 3. When it comes to physics, uko top. When it comes to biology, uko top. When it comes to chemistry, it is your top. So they see you from first year, no, who you is an intellectual. So in that way, you can risk. And instead of having 2 subjects in the first year, you have 1 subject. Remember, the reason why you have 2 subjects is still they are weighing. They don't know which one you. But you know, I see at the end of second year, your lecturer and is supposed to advise you on which of the 2 subjects remaining you stand a better chance of graduating. But here you have found you are very good in the 3, and the lecturers really have hopes in you. You are allowed in the second year to take 1 subject. So in the first year you have 3, second year 1, third year 1. So you find that the first team was 3-2. No, over 80% used to be 3-1, over 80%. Then there are those people, these are the people whom you found passing, just pass. I mean, passing in a second class degree honors. But those who got first class degree honors are these people who were so confident that second year they took 1 subject, and if you take 1 subject, you have more time to read that subject, and even third year you have more time to remember the other one has 2 subjects, so he or she sets aside 50% of time more, but all your time is set on that 1 subject. So those are the people you found that they were having first class degree honors, and immediately after they graduate, they go back for masters immediately. These are people like Adungosi. He went immediately back for masters. So that is how it used to happen in during that time. And I'll go back still in Form 4 or Form 5. 1980, the East African community collapsed. So each and every country started its own examination council. And that is why NEC, as you know it today, it was born in 1980, NEC. So you find that 1980, those people who did Form 4 in 1979 got EACE, East African Certificate of Education. But those who did Form 4 1980, they got KCE, Kenya Certificate of Education. The other one was East Africa, and this one was Kenya Certificate of Education. So they continued with the Kenya Certificate of Education until 844 started. And when 844 started, they decided that a primary certificate, to differentiate the primary certificate for somebody who did standard 7 and the one who did standard 8 under 844, they decided to name the primary certificate for 8 as Kenya CPE. But those one of standard 7 remained with CPE. Now you know. Now in Form 4, those who are doing 844, those who are doing 844, no, those who are doing 7423, who did Form 4, got KCE or EACE. But those who did, I'm back in 1980, 1979, if in 1979 you did Form 4, you got EACE. 1979, you got EACE. And if you did Form 6, you got EAACE. There is 2A. There is East African Advanced. You see, Form 4, there's just East African Certificate, East African Certificate of Education. But Form 6, it was East African Advanced Certificate of Education. That was Form 4. Then 1980, those who did Form 4 got KCE, Kenya Certificate of, and those who did 1980 Form 6, they got KACE, Kenya Advanced Certificate of Education. So EA, East Africa, was replaced by Kenya. They continued having that certificates of Form 4 was called Kenya Certificate of Education, which had replaced East African Certificate of Education. Form 6, Kenya Advanced Certificate of Education replaced East Africa Advanced Certificate of Education. Now later on, when the 844 started, I said that in primary they placed their KCPE. They added a K to differentiate it with standard 7 CPE on one hand. And when they reached Form 4, they added S. Instead of calling it KCE, they added KCSE, Kenya Certificate of Secondary Examination. I usually get people, I ask somebody, have you been to high school? Which high school did you go to? I went to Bungoma High School. And you ask the person, what certificate did you get? See, Kenya Certificate of Secondary Examination. So you people, you have been in secondary school, which has been calling it, you have been in high school, which gave you a certificate of secondary school. Now, as for CAPSEA, it's too early to comment, but sincerely, if you find a student who is in grade 6, somebody who can operate at a desktop, you cannot compare him or her to somebody who was in standard 8 in the CAPE time, or standard 7 during the CP time, or standard 8 in. So it is good that the primary school has been reduced. And you'll even find that some things that we used to study in school are of no beneficiary to us. We used to study about Jezira irrigation scheme in Sudan, alfalfa grass in Russia, and beryl goat seed New Zealand. Now, how does that geography assist any student? So they have removed what is not what is not important to Kenyan student and left that, and that is why. And then the kids' IQ is generally higher than during our time. I hope Gen Z don't hear that. Alafu anza kuniambia mzee, unajua tunakwambiaga ujui kureason. Now you have accepted. And then they have seen that secondary level, they were calling it a junior secondary school, and you could see they had written JSS. I am among the people who contacted the government and said that you should not call that school JSS, junior secondary school, because junior secondary school was from 2 in the former system, KJs. You remember Kenya Junior Secondary Examination. Now trying to tell us that somebody in grade 9 is equivalent to somebody who has studied up to Form 2 in the previous day. No. In fact, the person who is in grade 9 is more nearer a Form 4 in reasoning than a Form 2. So that is why you'll find that in many schools, nowadays they have written junior school. They have removed the name junior secondary, because Form 2 exam, that is a fly past. They are, recognize Inspector Yuko. You'll realize that calling it junior secondary, it means that they are equating them to Kenya Junior Secondary Examination. And then, but they are more of Form 4 than Form 2. So you find that then they place their 3 years in senior school. If I had my way, I would have named grade 7, 8, and 9, I would have named them secondary, and grade 10, 11, and 12, I would name them high school. But then I think somebody of grade 12 cannot be placed in the same level as KCSE. So maybe that's why they'll call it senior school. the advantage of having 3 years in senior school, you'll find that Form 5 and Form 6, we did it 2 years for preparation to university. But what I've discovered, those were not 2 years, because we entered in May and completed and did the exam in November. So that is 1.5 years. That is 1.5 years. And I think if they place it 3 years, people would have more time to study, so that the load in the universities is reduced. The load in the universities is reduced, and somebody goes to the. Remember, I just said that somebody who is going to do doctorate. I mean, treating doctor in medicine. Somebody is going to do doctor in medicine. You find him or her, if he or she fails in English or languages, doesn't get an airplane, and that stops him or her from. But if that person maybe studied for 3 years for PBC, physics, biology, and chemistry, he would, when he goes, or if she goes to the university, I'm not just talking about medicine, there is even engineering and whatever, electricity and so on. All those things put together, they will, if all those things are put together, university becomes easier for the students. With those all many remarks, I request you to at least tag somebody in the education system, a teacher, either primary, junior school, or even senior school, to understand this. I think this was more important to people in the education department. Thank you.